What's up everyone? My name is Sebastian and today we are going to be going over how to install the trolling motor and radar on a Sea Hunt Gamefish 28. Twin 300's pretty cool. But yeah, this is just going to be a retrospective tips and tricks video on how we ran the wire and put all this stuff on. We got the mount here. We went with the scan strut. We accidentally got the forward facing one. That just means these holes are on the front side, even though it should be flipped around, but we just made do with that. So be aware of that. Got the Garmin Phantom 18X on that. And then up here, we've got the Garmin Kraken 110 trolling motor on a Swivel. We put it on the port side. My dad decided to go with the 110 because we do not want to have the trolling motor pop out while we're fishing. To get the Swivel backing plate underneath, you have to drill an access hatch in the anchor locker. You want it to be big enough to fit the backing plate through, which I believe is 8 by 8 inches. Besides that, this is where he put the plug. We didn't like putting it on top because we don't want it to be too exposed to water. So we put it down here. This hatch was already here. This hatch was here for all of the gas stuff, we believe, but there was no matching hatch on the other side. So my dad actually bought this hatch online and cut this out, which I'll show you later, to be able to pull all of the power cables through the starboard side to the battle station where we have a lithium battery for the trolling motor. So here's a quick peek into the current setup down here. Charger, switch, all of that stuff. But Captain Caesar, you ready to give a tutorial on how you did it?
I think I'm almost ready, but I think maybe we start with if anybody's wondering what the thickness is of the different, holes that you gotta open up, and you want to see how thick, the structure is, or the walls. Starting with the access hatch by the bow, this is, the overall thickness, pretty much, just fiberglass. Takes time to do it, just, be patient, don't rush it, and it'll come out pretty cleanly. The next was the access for the power wire for the trolling motor that was under the battle station. This just to give you an idea of what the thickness of the floor is.
In short, up here, you need to drill a hole into the floor to be able to run the wire.
This one was the plug for the trolling motor, and then these two are this is the thickness for the power plugs for the batteries, both batteries. So that's two in the console as well as inside the battle station. Last but not least, this is the access hatch. It's got some styrofoam closed cell foam on the back. It's same thickness, about maybe 1/4 of an inch.
This is what he's referring to. As we said, this is pretty much necessary.
Yeah, that's the only way that you can run the wire. Pretty much, from underneath the console, you gotta go, straight out to the gunnel, and then from the gunnel, move all the way up to the bow on the starboard side. We ended up going with the placement on the port side, but everything, all the work is being run from the starboard side.
Yeah, now let's take a look into this hatch and see how the backing plate is and what it looks like down there. Okay. Hope this can be seen clearly. There's just the windlass controls over here. I don't know if you can see that. And then there's the backing plate. I'll take a look from another angle. This hatch below where all the rope is. And here's Captain Caesar.
Just gonna test drive this bad boy. Release, push out, and then when you're ready, give it a turn, lock it in, and off you go. that should do it. Retrieval, just as easy. Pull it back, unlock, swivel, and then set it back into your position.
It was a little difficult. You definitely need two people to get the backing plate on the C-swivel, just because it's such an awkward angle through the hatch. And well, my dad actually
And you definitely need two people to run the wire also through the gunnel. That there's no way you can just, you know, pull. You need somebody to start fitting the wire while somebody's, you know, pulling while keeping tension. That way that cable won't sag and get, you know, trapped on anything. So if you keep tension, you know, have two people, then you're gonna be better off. But yeah, the trick was to run the pull cord, whatever you want to use to, you know, to pull that cable, was to run it on top of the gunnel. So it's a magnetic, you know, I guess, how do you call it?
It's like a Klein magnetic wire puller.
Yeah. Instead of using the traditional fishing wire, you just, you know, start pulling that line, definitely, you know, staying on the outside. And then the one area to keep an eye on is, you know, right here, that waistline is going to be, you know, curving that way. So you don't want to run your wire on this end, or else, you know, it'll start, you know, pinching a lot. So you want to make sure that you know, power wire runs in between that hose. All the other wires were also laid out the same way. So you want to come, you know, on this end and then, you know, straight down. Everything else was pretty much pretty easy. Getting across into the battle station was a little bit difficult, probably because I had the wrong, I started from the wrong side. But I ended up, you know, feeding the cable from, you know, from the gunnel into the battle station through a pull wire that I had set up. It was a pretty small opening. Just took a little bit of patience to, you know, try to get, you know, in between all the cables instead of, you know, jamming the pull wire against those additional cables that were there. But once it, you know, it came through, everything else was pretty easy. Pulling from the console into the battle station was also pretty straightforward. I think, as Sebastian said, the key was to make sure that we drilled the, you know, the access hole to pull the wire, you know, pretty much, you know, straight across from, you know, from the access location within the console, and then everything else was easy.
If I'm remembering correctly, you screwed that and took that out to be able to drill the hole?
Yeah, just to make it more comfortable. Instead of, you know, having to go all the way into the battle station, I took this off, and that just gave me, you know, easy access, you know, drilled, you know, straight down, opened that 2-inch hole, and then I put a boot, you know, a plastic boot, and just like any other boots that you use, you know, for the fuel lines, and that was it.
Here's how my dad set it up in here. With we ended up opting with the Monster, I think it's the Monster Marine lithium batteries. We went with a 36 volt, 75 amp hour. Then down here, I believe, is the hole he was talking about, the 2-inch hole that he made and wired the cables through. So for the radar, the first thing is you have to take off pretty much both of these panels, or just one, depending on what side you actually want to route the cables to. The power and then the NMEA to the back of the Garmin unit. You take off this right here, you just unscrew it not too hard. This one actually doesn't have any electrical connectors, so you can pop it completely off, if I remember correctly, and move it. This one does have the connections on the back, so if you did want to take off this side, you could take it off and then just shift it over one and then just hook it up to some of the screws that are available here, just so that it doesn't unplug any of those. Let's say we're over here. There is a reinforced box. Not sure how it is on other boats. It's 12 inches wide, and then from each side, or each post specifically, I measured from the top of the post, I'll show you in a second, from here to here, so from post to the edge on both sides is 14 inches, and then the depth is like anywhere from 18 to 20 inches. It goes all the way to this, or this is what we measured from, just this lip, so 18 to 20 inches. And then these are the posts. This is what he used to measure from up top. I think I said earlier that it was 14 to the edge, but because this is about an inch, you can add it 15 if you're measuring from here, or just measure from the inner edge of this circle to the middle to get 14 inches. Hopefully those measurements help somebody. The way to get the wiring down to the bottom of the console is that these posts they're hollow, and they have like a little 2-3 inch cutout that's like 2-3 by, let's say it's 3 inches by like 1 inch in width, and there's already stuff in them, but you can get a fishing wire or whatever sort of wire you want to use to route a pull through rope or pull through cord, I guess. But we went bottom through top. And actually show it down here. We're going into the console. It's a lot easier with 2 people, but I think you can do this one with 1 person. But here it is. So up here, see that little cutout with pretty much in the middle of the screen where all these cables are coming through? Went in with our wire, pushed it upwards from here. My dad stayed up top, and with a metal coat hanger, we just bent it into like a little hook, and it popped. The string and the wire showed up over here. We used a blue string. I would recommend using something like neon colored or something. And he got it, hooked it, and then pulled it out this way, and that's pretty much all you needed to do. All right, everyone. The maiden voyage. We made it out without having any issues, but man, it looks big on the water. This is just a big old chunker, huh?
Yeah, it's nice. It doesn't even move with this little swell.
So Dad, how do you feel pulling it off the trailer? How was that?
It was a little scary, but I think it just went back to basics. Not panic, try to go slow. And you know, see how the boat reacted to the wind, because the wind picked up definitely quite a bit more than what we had expected. So
yeah, it's blowing a solid 10 to 13. I would say even 13 solid, which is more than expected, but nothing this boat can't handle.
It will die down by the time we get past the cape, so we'll see.
Yeah, and we launched out of the boat ramp in Port St. Joe. Home ramp, gotta love it.
A little cold, a little bit chilly.
Well, that's what we got the windshield for, right?
We're gonna be huddling in the cabin.
No kidding. We might do a little bit of trolling, just bringing a couple rods, but we'll see. See y'all out there. All right, first throttle up. With Dad being the official owner.
Ready?
Go for it. Chilling. 3,200 RPM, going 28. In the Monaco one, we'd be probably getting wet by now, right, Dad?
Super wet.
No, we're chilling. This thing rides like a dream.
It would be wet and choppy, really choppy.
Yeah. All right, people. I got a drop. We're on a spot. I got a drop.
You can send it.
See what happens. This thing hasn't been tied on in a while, so. You reckon?
Yeah. You're on. There you go, come on. Get him up, get him up. Get him up. What is it?
Grouper?
Red grouper?
No, it is a gag, but pop the line.
Darn it.
Well, that was old line. Keep her gag.
Yeah.
But
Another one, I guess.
yeah.
It's just the knot that, you know, broke, you know.
Yeah, the knot did break, probably just from being tied there so long. That was a good one too. It was a good like 28 incher probably.
It felt good.
Yeah, it was fighting good. Dang, first fish on the Monica 2 would have been a gag grouper. Oh, tough looks. It happens. Captain Caesar. Okay, I hope that all of that information, at least some of it, is useful to somebody out there. That's the whole purpose of why we're making this video. It's just a tips and tricks video, a retrospective, like just analysis of what my dad did and what I did while I was here to help. But he did most of the work. If anybody has any more questions, feel free to reach out. And thanks for watching.